Welcome to Breaking Down Mental Health with Dr. Jones. In these educational videos, Dr. Jones will discuss mental health diagnosis, clinical supervision, using technology in counseling, multiculturalism, and many other topics to help you get a healthy understanding of why mental health is important. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button if you enjoy these videos. In our final video, we're still looking at I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. We want to wrap up chapter 13 and 14, looking at the thoughts of integration in the workplace. Just as a final reminder, please make sure you have read chapter 13 and 14 from this book by Austin Channing Brown before watching these videos, so it will help give you context to what I'm talking about and also give you context for the book. I really have enjoyed this book so far and will enjoy it reading through this book and hitting some highlight points with you. And what I want to do is hit these last two chapters to see how Austin Brown brings all this together. So in chapter 13, she calls it Justice, Then Reconciliation. And one of the first things that she begins to talk about is what exactly is racial reconciliation. The problem with that word is that it is thrown around so much in many different circles, whether it's in faith-based circles, whether it's in counseling circles, whether it's in mental health in general. We talk about this term of racial reconciliation. The problem is we really don't know what that exactly looks like, because for many individuals, when they think of racial reconciliation, they get this picture in their mind of everyone around the world holding hands, everyone is getting along, and everyone is fine. But we know that is fantasy. We know that is not what racial reconciliation looks like. For some organizations, it may look like, they may think it looks like having a bunch of one particular minority group coming or working there in their business. And so for them, that equals racial reconciliation, but that still definition still falls very short. Or just having a multi-ethnic workplace. Some people look at that as being, hey, that's racial reconciliation. But once again, that definition really drops short of what we're looking for. Or just a thing where people get together and ask a lot of racial questions about each other. They look at that as being racial reconciliation. Or maybe diversity means that we have a few people hired maybe in some lower positions in all the office spaces. Maybe that is what it is for racial reconciliation. The problem is when you listen to those things that I just mentioned, racial reconciliation really does not those definitions don't come close to what we're looking for. That when we're looking at reconciliation, the big thing we're looking for overall is relationship. That you can't truly have reconciliation with any individual, with any group of people, until there is relationship there. And the problem with having a relationship is relationships take sacrifice. Someone's going to have to be sacrificing something in order for there to be relationship. And if individuals are not willing to have a relationship with individuals who are different from them, they're not really willing to accept people for where they are and how they show up to the table, then reconciliation is one of those things that will never come around. So as mental health professionals, as we think about the client that comes into the room, we work on building a relationship. We meet them where they are. We don't try to change them as clinicians. We don't try to make them act like we do. We choose to treat them as in the right frame of mind, and we meet them where they are. But for some reason, we can understand that as clinicians, but when it comes to us as coworkers, or when it comes to management and the ones who work in positions below us, we forget about that relationship piece. We become very directive with each other. We get our feelings bent out of shape when something doesn't agree with our particular worldview. And when those things begin to happen, the relationship that we're trying to build never gets built, and that becomes problematic. And so really For true reconciliation to come about, there's going to have to be individuals on both sides who are willing to have uh, those conversations, and we'll talk more about the conversations in a minute, but conversations that end in relationship building. But relationships can't be built unless there is trust. And so, once again, that complicates things. How do you go about trusting someone who you've never had trust for before? Or how do you go about trusting someone who has broken that trust with you plenty of times before? Or somebody, or they represent a group of people who've broken trust to you many times before. That can be difficult. But that is really what reconciliation is going to look like. Is that there's going to be a relationship in the end, and it's going to be an equal relationship where both parties are able to coming together in this relationship and be able to speak. Both parties are going to be able to have an equal say in what that relationship looks like. There's going to be some very strong boundaries in that relationship, and there's going to be some very strong ground rules in that relationship. And any relationship that does not have that will fail. And so it's no different when it comes to reconciliation, that we talk about that relationship aspect. Also, reconciliation goes far beyond dialogue. Many organizations will have times where they will have conversations about race. And so I think that's great. But just having a conversation about something and having a dialogue does not mean you come to an agreement or that there's a relationship being built. Because I know people can come to a dialogue about something and still, as we say, agree to disagree, which leaves two people in a place where no progress has been made. So we want to work on making sure there is progress being made, and so it goes well beyond just having dialogue. We want individuals to be able to come together to speak on those things that are hurting them, to be able to acknowledge the hurts that they have caused other people, being able to have this dialogue, but do we go beyond that to seek relationship in the end? And so conversations by themselves are not enough. And so in the book, she says this: reconciliation is the pursuit of the impossible, an upside down world where those who are powerful have relinquished power to the margins. That's a strong statement. It's the pursuit of the impossible. And it does sometimes seem impossible to have those relationships, to have those dialogues that lead to relationships. It seems impossible sometimes. But Austin Brown says in order for that to happen, we must step into a place with those who are powerful, give their power away to the margins. What does that look like? How scary that must feel to those who have power to relinquish that so that others have power as well. Imagine a society where power has always been in the hands of a certain group of people. And now those group of people are saying we no longer want to be in this spot. We want part of this power as well, so we have the ability to change things. That's going to be a struggle. That's going to be difficult. But I believe it's something that could possibly happen if everyone comes to that table and want to seek relationship, and those at the top are willingly able to give over that power. Because if the power has to be stolen, if the power has to be taken, you'll have one group of people who will still be fighting to get it back. So this power has to be freely relinquished. And that's where the problem lies. It's that our country has been established where power has been in the control of one group for such a long time that the idea of giving up that power scares people, and they don't want to do it. And so, because if I do that, that means I may miss out something. If I do that, that means the decision may be made that I don't like. If I do that, that means that I'm no longer in control. And that is where it becomes very problematic. And so I think when she talks about this pursuit is impossible, some days it feels that way. But she's helping us to see that reconciliation can be something that can happen, but justice must happen first before that happens for all of us. And in the last chapter of the book, she talks about standing in the shadow of hope. And one thing she talks about is about whiteness. And she said, whiteness seeks comfort while hearts are being changed. The problem with that statement, and I think the point she was making is that if you are, it's impossible for change to come about and for you to still be comfortable. Someone's going to be uncomfortable as hearts are being changed. Because when your heart changes, then the way you think changes. And the way you think changes, your behavior change. And I'm not sure about any of you who are listening to this right now, but when it comes time to change things, change is not comfortable. Change is scary. Change is something that not many people grab onto too quickly because they're so used to things being a certain way for such a long time. And so when whiteness says, I want the changes, I want people's hearts to be different, but I want to be comfortable, it's not possible. You're going to be uncomfortable in those times period if you want there to be true, actual change that comes about. And then she ends the chapter with these three main points where she says that she feels like things are going for her. One is that we must seek love that is troubled by injustice. We talk about love a lot just in our society, about how love fixes so many things. Now, I agree with that to a certain extent, that love is a powerful thing that can change people. But love that is troubled by injustice looks different. It's a different thing for me to love someone and do something for them because I feel bad for them. It's another thing for me to love somebody because I see the injustice they are dealing with and I want to make a change because I'm troubled by that. I can't sleep at night. It bothers me to the core. It makes me sick. And when I think about that individual going through those situations, how often do we feel injustice? Or how often do we react viscerally to injustices that we see in this world? And I would dare say probably not enough. I hope in the sessions, our counseling sessions, that when we see injustice, that it bothers us to our core. It bothers us so much that we have to do something about that. It bothers us so much that we'd say, I cannot sit still and not do anything because it troubles us, because it's not right. So in order for things to change in our society, when we talk about racism, when we talk about trying to look at reconciliation, when we talk about privilege, we look at all these things like that nature, the only way that's going to be changed in the right way is to make sure that we love in a way that is troubled by injustice. And there's really no other way about it to doing it. Any other type of love that we have is going to fall short if it's not troubled by injustice. Also, she talks about the end goal as being realignment and rediscovery. That it's going to take more than just conversations. We have to realign everything. Say that again. Everything that we know about must be realigned. Once again, there's that thing called change. Are we really ready to do that? If we're talking about in the counseling room, is that person ready for realignment? Are we ready to help them with realignment? What about in our workplaces? Are we really ready for realignment? Because if we aren't, there's no point of us talking about this. We have to be open to having things looking significantly different. That means sometimes starting from the drawing board, starting over with everything, looking at every policy we've ever written and starting over with those policies, looking at everything we've ever done and saying and questioning all of it because we realize we've done some things wrong in the past. And so in order for us to make things right, we must realign everything. Scary stuff there. Now, also outside of realignment, we need to do some rediscovery. In this process of rediscovery, we start to look for things that are different from us and we grasp and we hold on to those and we learn from it. We learn from the experiences that we've gone through. We learn from the pain that we've caused to other people. We learn from the injustices other people have been through, and we acknowledge it. And we say we will not stand for that to happen any longer. Realignment and rediscovery go hand in hand. We look at things differently now because we're changing everything. But that is the end goal, is that we want a new system created. But a new system cannot be created if those in power choose not to give up that power. It has to be a choice. It cannot be forced out of them to do that. And then finally, she talks about the limitations of hope. That as she looks at where we are in our current society, as she looks at the different things that we are dealing with when it comes to racial diversity, when it comes to injustices in this world, that there are some limitations of hope. That it's hard getting excited about things changing because we have a really good way of messing things up when things are going in the right direction. And whenever we hold on to that hope can sometimes hurt us because we can hope that things will be different. We can hope that things will change, and we hold on to that so tight just to realize that something pushes us back 10 to 15 steps from the place we're trying to be. So hope can be a dangerous thing. And even though it's a positive word, it can be something dangerous that we seek after. So she talks about the limitations of hope that she has found and the work that she is doing. And so as we kind of do a recap of this book in general, I feel like this book was extremely eye-opening from a mental health perspective. It helped us to get an understanding of what people go through on an everyday basis and help us to see how guilt plagues people. But sometimes that guilt is not enough to just change individuals. We talked a lot about individuals and the power they have and what do they do with that power? Or that R word, racism. How do we deal with that when people don't like racism, when they're more afraid of being called a racist than they are about seeking out the things they've done wrong? And so I think the best way to recap all of what we've talked about in this video series is that we as mental health practitioners, we as coworkers, we as management, we have to look and see and do our own inventory and say, what can I personally change to make things better? What power can I give up in order to see that things are being better? What things in my life can be realigned, and what things can I fight for and love it so much because of the injustice I'm seeing? Are we really willing to do that? And if your answer to that question is yes, then I wish you good luck on that journey. If your answer to that question is no, then I think we have a lot more work to do. I appreciate being able to speak to you about this topic. I really appreciate being able to walk through this book with you. And I hope that by the reading of this book, I'm Still Here, by Austin Channing Brown, and just some of the notes and commentary I've added to it has been beneficial to you. Hope you have a great day.